Hello Prentice Puma Band, this is Miss Dasher, and for this lesson we are going to be learning about ledger lines. We're going to get to see what a ledger line looks like, and we're also going to be able to see what different types of notes look like when they're on a ledger line too. So an exciting lesson ahead, lots to learn, and let's begin. Here's a refresher on our previous lessons over treble clef and bass clef, and how each note has found its place on either a line or a space. Just as notes can fit inside the staff, notes can also go way down below, or even way up above the staff too. This staff has smaller lines that are leading away from the 5 longer horizontal lines in the middle. These smaller lines are called ledger lines. It's important to know that a ledger line is short and horizontal. A ledger line can also go above or below the staff. Let's start with the treble clef on note name E, which is also on the first line in this staff. As we go down, we want to think about the note names that come before E, so in this case, we get the note name D. Following the note for D, we get our first ledger line. If we think about the musical note that comes before D, we get C, so C gets to be on that first ledger line going down. Now that we're going upwards, we get to think about the notes that come after. In this example, we're starting with F, which is on the 5th line in the staff. The musical note that comes after F is G. After note name G in the musical alphabet, we return to note A, which is on the first ledger line going up from the staff. As we go upwards from the staff, ledger lines don't just disappear. If we add notes B and C, notice that note C has 2 ledger lines. As we go down from the staff, each note will either be on a ledger line or hang just below the ledger line. As we go up from the staff, each note will either be on a ledger line or sit just above the ledger line. Of course, we can't forget bass clef. If we start on note G, which is on the first line in the staff, the notes that go below it go in the same direction as they did with the treble clef. Notice how note name E is on the first ledger line, and then note name D afterwards is hanging just below that first ledger line. Starting with note A on the 5th line in the staff, the notes go above the staff in the same direction as they did with the treble clef. This staff looks very similar to our treble clef from before, except that we are in bass clef. Which notes do you notice have ledger lines? Remember, the note can be sitting above, hanging below, or be placed on the ledger line. Going below the staff, we have notes E, D, and C, which each have at least 1 ledger line. Notice how E has only 1 ledger line. D sits just below that first ledger line, and then note C has a total of 2 ledger lines. Going above the staff, we have notes starting with C, D, then E, which each have at least 1 ledger line. C has the first ledger line, then D sits just above that first ledger line. Finally, we have E, which has a total of 2 ledger lines. We already just answered this question, but see if you can remind yourself which notes in this staff have more than 1 ledger line. Going below the staff, we have note name C, which has 2 ledger lines. Going above the staff, we have note name E, which has 2 ledger lines as well. For the vocabulary in this lesson, we have the first term, which is horizontal and means from side to side. The opposite of horizontal is vertical, which means up and down. The ledger line we know is a short, horizontal line that extends the range of notes either above or below the staff. To review, ledger lines are short, horizontal lines that are used to extend the range of notes either above or below the staff. Ledger lines are always horizontal. A note can have 1 or more ledger lines, and a note can either sit above, hang below, or be placed on a ledger line. Always look at the accompanying slides for help when you practice. Try practicing looking at the notes in the staff, and then marking which ones have ledger lines and which ones do not. Once you're comfortable recognizing the notes going above and below the staff, try marking up to 2 or even 3 ledger lines outside of the staff. And don't forget the note names. Also, did you know that there's no limit to how many ledger lines a note can have? A note can even have 20 ledger lines. Imagine singing that in your music. Remember that we're always here to help, so if you have any questions, please send your questions to Mr. Heffler at jeffrey.heffler@austinicu.org.